Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle. I want to share with you my unusual life. The fact is that I have grown fur. If you want to know how it happened and how my life changed after that, watch further. I was born into a family of farmers. My parents were always engaged in raising livestock, particularly sheep. I remember when I was little, I was really interested in these animals. Have you ever touched the wool of sheep? When my cousins came to visit, they were always afraid to approach them more than a meter. They thought they would bite. Someone said that they stink, but not for our family, because sheep were not just our animals, they brought us income. So I was trained from childhood to care for them. I was never averse to petting them, feeding them, and sometimes my father let me clean the barn of dirt. But most of all, I loved it when my father cut their hair, or rather their wool. Our sheep were like fluffy clouds, so uneven and big. It's funny to look at their heads and legs sticking out from under the skirt. We also had a dog named Gerda, who was a great help in corralling them. I usually ran alongside at this time. After a long game at the beauty salon, we collected wool and Dad took it to the city, where he sold it to different people. Then I grew up and went to school, where I was often reproached for the smell. My ruthless classmates said I smelled like sheep from a mile away, but I was used to the smell of them and didn't even smell it. However, I had to study because I was growing up, and there were no more schools in the nearest district. My parents only told me to ignore their complaints. But the most terrible thing was not this, but what lay ahead. By the way, I forgot to say that I am naturally blonde. I have very light, almost golden hair, and when I turned 14 years old, it began to curl for no reason at all. This added to the mockery in my address. Curly blonde became like a sheep. The boys wouldn't let me through, especially the ones who had been bullying me since the first day of school. They called me Sheep Me. I hated my hair. And even though my mom said I had a gorgeous color and cute curls, it didn't help. Once I was so angry that I bought hair dye without my mother's knowledge and secretly dyed it black. Of course, I have never had the experience to properly dilute the dye and apply it, distributing it over my hair. Do you have any idea what kind of horror I got on my head? When I washed my hair and dried it, I saw some stupid Dalmatian in the mirror. Yes, my whole head was stained. I was so mad at myself, at my parents, at the school, and at everyone else that I smeared the rest of the dye all over the bathroom. Then my mother came and gasped at what she saw. Not only did I ruin my hair, but I had to wash the bathroom most of the day. Well, then there was nothing to do but make up again. This time, my mother did it herself. From that moment on, I became a girl with black hair, and when I came to class, I again attracted unnecessary attention. I've regretted it 100 times, but I didn't know it would turn out this way. In general, I added to my problems. And then something even worse happened. One day, I woke up from a strange feeling. I didn't seem to have any pain, but I was throwing in a cold sweat. I had terrible mood swings, and I didn't want to eat at all. Then I just went wild with hunger. I didn't understand what was happening and complained to my mother. She took me to the doctor, who examined me and said, "You're going through puberty. Your hormones are raging now, so this is a normal process." I honestly didn't understand a word of it, but one thing was clear. There was nothing I could do about it. We came home and my mother said that after a while, everything will pass. This is a period that everyone goes through. Somewhere in a couple of months after the visit to the doctor, I got a little worse. I began to notice obvious changes in my body. I began to grow hair on my legs, arms, in my armpits, and I also had a rare, barely noticeable mustache. The only good thing was that the hair was light, so it didn't show much. But it was still very stressful for me. I began to search the internet and discovered the concept of depilation with wax, sugar, a typewriter, and so on and so on. I thought to myself, this is what I need. After saving some money, I found a salon within walking distance and signed up there. I will say right away, I was terribly hurt, but the result was worth it. My skin became even smoother than before. I was so happy that my hair was gone that I didn't even get taunted about the smell at school. But unfortunately, the hair returned after a couple of weeks. I went again, and again, and again, and again, and the master and I noticed that I was getting more hair. Although according to her, it should have been the other way around. I promised not to touch my hair myself, and I didn't, but I didn't understand why there were so many more of them. With each trip, it became harder and longer to remove them. I didn't have enough pocket money, patience, and time for all this. And then the school announced a vacation. Of course, I stopped getting money and I began to grow hair like a monkey. My hair grew at the speed of light, and I became depressed. Even my dad began to notice that something was wrong with me. And one morning, when I woke up, I went to the mirror and screamed so that I almost burst. I was covered with hair from head to toe. My face, even the areas under my eyes, my nose, everything except my eyes, lips, and ears were covered with hair. Such light, longish tufts. It broke my self-esteem. I locked myself in the bathroom and cried stupidly. Mom and Dad were banging on the door like crazy. Dad already broke down the door, and you know what? Even they were freaked out. They were scared and even jumped back a little. "What's wrong with you? What's wrong with your face?" my mother asked. I shouted back that I wasn't interested in talking. My mother called a taxi and rushed me to the hospital. The doctor who examined me earlier looked at me for a long time in silence, then approached, then moved away. When my mother asked her what was wrong, she said that I should have been examined at another clinic in the city. From that moment, my frenzied life in hospitals began. I passed dozens of tests, met with doctors, scientists, cosmetologists. No one could understand why my hair was growing. Yes, you heard right. I was growing fur. And only after probably a week and a half, only one doctor said that I was healthy. It looks like it's a failure of your body during puberty. You have a hormonal failure. That's what they told me. Such cases could be dealt with if it were hair, but not wool. Now I was a fully fledged sheep in the family. My wool even looked like the one worn by sheep. I hated myself. I didn't look at my reflection. My mother tried to persuade me to go back to school, but I waved her off, saying that I would not go in looking like this, because I would be killed there. My mother suggested an alternative, to continue to go to beauty salons. I was put on a table like an animal, and my fur was removed from all parts of my body. Several girls did it at the same time. I even got used to the pain. The effect was amazing, but not for long. Besides, it all cost money. Then I decided that I would only go to school when I had everything removed. My parents were called to the principal's office, where they explained my situation. Thank God it was winter, so I wrapped myself in scarves, hats, and glasses so that no one would see or recognize me. Only after the principal saw the horror on my body, she said that she would allow me to study remotely for the time being. So another 6 months passed. In the end, I locked myself in my room and just started to grow. Let it take its course. Then I became like a snowman. Over time, anyway, everyone began to ask where I was. Even representatives of social care came. The information spread quickly, and the neighbors knocked on the door, ostensibly under the guise of offering to help me, but we knew they wanted to gawk. They were followed into the house by reporters. My father bravely chased them away, even threatening to sue them. But they still managed to find me. It was unavoidable. They took pictures of my reflection in the window as I left the house on the porch. Then the pictures flashed in press. Horror. Only what nonsense I did not read about myself. There was even a possibility that my parents transplanted sheep wool to me because they were crazy. In this regard, they began to drag them to different guardianship authorities, and I was forced to stay on the street one way or another. When I completely scored, I stopped noticing that I was hot, that my back sometimes itched terribly, even fleas could start. My dog stopped recognizing me. It was afraid. Only my lips and eyes were visible on my face. And now I didn't need any makeup. The horror I experienced only worsened my condition. I lost a lot of weight. Because of my parents' depression, my mother became ill. She was having problems with her heart, and then she fainted right in front of me. The ambulance didn't go for a long time, so my dad and I decided to take her to the hospital ourselves. It was summer, and I was wearing only a t-shirt and shorts. When we got to the hospital, my dad took my mom upstairs, and I ran after them. People shied away from me along the way. The most resourceful turned on the cameras and started shooting, but I only thought about my mother. As a child in the hospital, I met 2 classmates, brothers who mock me. They stole my clothes, started shouting my name and taking pictures. I didn't pay attention and ran on. A few minutes later, my photos appeared in the school group. Now my existence has been officially confirmed. At the hospital, my mother was brought to her senses. There was no threat, except for me. The people in the hallways looked like idiots. They made me mad. When I opened my mouth and sent them away, they screamed even harder. All sorts of treatments failed. I remained a sheep. We hid in the house again, drew the curtains, and did not go out. So I lived a terrible year, losing 12 months of my life. To be honest, I didn't want to live at all. I often had bad thoughts in my head until some processor called us at home. He said one short sentence, "I know how to help you." I felt a surge of hope that hadn't been in my heart for a long time. We invited him to our home, and he should be arriving soon. I don't know if it will help, but I really hope so.